This is finishing off your toque when you're all done knitting it. So we've got everything knitted up. You can see we just have a few stitches left on there. I had 40 at the start and now I have about 10. So it's come to a nice closure at the top there. So all that we're going to do now is we're going to cut the yarn off. So we're going to leave a tail, a good 8 inches is nice because then you've got lots of room to work with. So just a good amount there. And then we're going to thread that tail through our tapestry needle. So again, this is just a really big, sometimes called a yarn needle. It has a really big eye. It has a dull tip, mostly usually. This is my biggest one that I have because my yarn is so thick. So I need a bigger size. So we'll just thread that on there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, so the knitting needle is still in there. My circular is still in there. You can see the cord running through the stitches. So I'm just going to follow clockwise around, right to left around, follow that cord through so that I'm going to be transferring the stitches from the needle and the cord onto this needle and then eventually the tail of the yarn as well. So to go in there, sometimes it's quite easy to split the yarn as you go through, so you just want to try to get right through that loop. Just working your way around there. And usually I'll get kind of a few on and then I'll pull that through and we'll keep going. So you want to be careful as you work your way around, just really careful that you're not missing any stitches. When they're so big like this, it's pretty easy to do it well, but if you were to miss a stitch, then that stitch would start unraveling and you'd have to open everything back up and get everything back on your needles and go back through it. Okay, so I've worked my way around, so I've gotten back to the other side of the needle there. So I'm just going to sort of put that through the fabric of the toque for now, just so I can get my circular out, and then we'll keep going. So now I'm just gonna feed it through from one end. As I go, I'm gonna make sure, it's pretty tight now because we've got that extra yarn going through. I'm gonna make sure as I go that every stitch that comes off does have that yarn running through. Just another double check because you really don't wanna have those stitches come loose. So we'll just finish checking everything looks good. Okay, so now we're going to pick up our needle again. So we've got just this smaller circle up at the top. Now the yarn has gone all the way through our circle of stitches. We're just going to pull it tight from there. So just really tighten that up so that nothing comes open. And then I'm going to tie that off as tightly as I can. So tie it really nice and close there. Okay, so now you can see the top of our hat is all closed up. And then as far as sewing in the ends here, I'm just gonna feed the needle and the yarn down to the inside just so we can get that knot out of the way. It'll mostly be covered with the pom-pom anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but just kind of get it down in there. Okay, whoops. So there is the nice crown of our hat. And you can see with those decreases, it's just pulled the top of the hat together there. And then we're just going to sew in the ends. So I like to sort of find a part that's kind of ridged up towards me on the inside is a good choice because it'll be more hidden that way. And just sort of find your way through some stitches. This one doesn't have a really obvious pattern for working through. And we'll just give it a pull through there. And then maybe work our way back up a little bit just so it's really secure. Try not to pick stitches that are right beside each other because those will sometimes show through to the front side, and we'll just do a little double check at the end here. Okay. Make sure you haven't pulled the fabric too tight at all. So we'll just have a little look. So if it was going to show through, we'd see like a stripe, a line of yarn sticking through there, and then you just want to redo that so it wasn't so obvious. But that looks pretty good. So for that one now, all we need to do is just snip the end there, so just nice and close. We'll just leave a little tiny tail now, and then we'll go down to the brim, and this is actually my favorite type of end to sew in because it's really nice and easy and it hides itself well. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use, I'm on the inside now, right? You always want to check and do your sewing in on the inside, but we're going to pick one of these knit rows and we're just going to go back and forth through it, and that will be completely hidden on the other side. So I'm just going to go straight through one row there and just pull it through, and then I'm just going to work my way back. So this is kind of like a little bit more like traditional sewing where you're going side to side, but it works really well when you have ribbing. So just work our way up. I like to get right out of the ribbing because it's a little bit holier. That one's splitting. So if I leave the tail there, sometimes it'll poke through and show. So we'll just get right up out of there, and then I just pick a couple more stitches up top just to run it through there. Okay, and so this is our row that we sewed the end in on or threaded it through. And on the front side, you really can't tell. It looks a tiny bit thicker in through that purl section right there, but you really wouldn't notice unless you were actually looking for it. So it's really well hidden. And then again, we're just gonna snip that. And ta-da! There's our hat, all finished. So that is finishing off the top of the toque and sewing the ends in.